With the establishment of esports worldwide, not only did its prize pools, investments, and audience engagement increase, but also conflicts and ambiguous situations that needed regulation. Logically, if we're talking about Valve Games, a separate division within the company should have been responsible for this, similar to how it happens in football or other sports. But when has Uncle Gaben ever wanted to do something that wouldn't bring in money? This isn't Riot, which has an esports department regulating the competitive scene of their own games. Sometimes they do go overboard with restrictions and decisions, but that's better than nothing at all. That's why, at a certain point, the Esic organization emerged, wanting to take on these responsibilities. They didn't address all issues, focusing only on those related to match fixing. You've probably heard of them, and mostly in a negative sight. So, let's try to understand this issue. Who are these Esic people? How and why did they appear? And what's the current outcome of all this? Esic describes itself as a non-profit member association established in 2016 to promote and facilitate integrity in esports competitions. Although the concept of a non-profit organization is quite controversial in this case, we'll address that a bit later. The organization is headed by Ian Smith, who came to esports from the traditional sports sector where he dealt with anti-doping and anti-corruption issues. Yes, we all want esports to be perceived on par with football, tennis, or other popular sports disciplines, but can an organization tasked with clearly resolving all conflicts or suspicious moments in an environment like CS be led by someone completely unfamiliar with its ecosystem? This is the first question that raises doubts. As Ian Smith himself stated, he entered esports by chance, realizing that the industry needed a body to control all this. However, from another perspective, it looks as if he realized that there's big money circulating here from which he could profit. And as revealed in an interview with one of Esic's former employees, the company has almost no one who understands esports, with most of the staff being tough lawyers who earn a lot of money and don't want to work.
Esic, в первую очередь, это юрист. Это очень жесткие юристы. Они реально прям очень жесткие. Они изначально построили свою компанию документально очень жестко. То есть документально к ним никак нельзя прийти ни с какой стороны. Они, во-первых, не коммерческая организация, во-вторых, они только предоставляют свои данные, аналитику и все остальное. Все, кто там авторизованы, им это не интересно. Им работать и заниматься вот этими вашими игрушками, Counter-Strike'ами не надо. Это юристы, жесткие юристы. У них очень большие зарплаты. От $100 тысяч в год. $100 тысяч в год это в любой стране очень много. Вот любую пальцем ткните, это уже много. При этом им не нужно ничего делать. Ага. И вот так вот и работает это внутри системы. То есть там никто не работает. Не интересно никому работать. Ну не надо.
It's quite interesting that after we learned about Esic collaborating with a considerable number of bookmakers, guaranteeing them a safe scene, they continue to complain about not having sufficient funding for their work. This podcast discussed many other interesting issues, particularly how Esic seized power as a controlling agency in esports.
С этими документами, юридически правильными, зарегистрированы в Лондоне, все-таки страна не по себе. Второй офис открыт в Австралии, тоже очень жестко нужно иметь компании в этих двух странах, не просто так их миллиардеры там себе открывают. Эти компании, они приходят к лицензиатам. Лицензиат – это компания, которая выдает букмекерам лицензии и контролирует, чтобы они людей не обманывали. Они приходят и говорят: вот у нас компания, надзорный орган, вот документы чистые, смотрите, мы юристы профессиональные, все здорово, дайте нам возможность вам помогать и отламывать мошенников. Они говорят: да, хорошо. Одна компания сказала: да, хорошо, вторая, третья, четвертая, пятая. 5 компаний сказали: да, хорошо, просто потому что они смотрят на документы, документы чистые, красивые, составлены правильно, значит, люди что-то понимают, деньги у них есть, голова на плечах тоже. Это Esic. Собрав 5 компаний, приходит еще к компаниям, говорит: смотрите, у нас 5 надзорных органов. Мы уже, прям уважаемые ребята. Вы букмекера, понимаете? Мы уже следим за вами, потому что у нас 5 надзорных органов нам доверяют. Давайте мы вам поможем, вы нам будете платить. Букмекер говорит: хорошо, здорово. Esic собирает 20 компаний, идет к Valve и говорит: смотрите, у нас 5 надзорных органов в Австралии и в Лондоне, у нас 20 букмекерских компаний, самых крупных, которые сотрудничают с нами. Значит, мы, компания уважаемая. Уважаемая? Valve говорит: уважаемая. Все. Значит, мы можем расследовать любую подставную мошенничество. Правильно? Правильно. Кто-то оценивает их работу? Нет. Кто-то пытается понять, чем эта компания занимается? Нет.
From this, we understand that, as we mentioned earlier, the company was created mostly not for actual regulation and resolution of disputed situations, but to gain influence and, consequently, money. Again, the organization positions itself as non-profit. All right, from this we understood that Esic's seemingly good intentions weren't quite as they appeared, but let's move on to their investigations. Perhaps there was something interesting and truly worthwhile for which this organization was created. One of the most famous situations they were involved in was, of course, the bans of coaches for using the coach bug. We're sure you've heard about it, as these bans were received not only by some truly unscrupulous coaches of suspicious Tier 3 teams, but also by well-known personalities like Raban or LMBT. They even decided to give coaches a sort of opportunity to confess their sins, for which the latter would receive less punishment. The main problem with these bans was that they were issued to almost everyone without much discrimination. And even the bans that were issued justly were not due to Esic themselves, who promised to review tens of thousands of demos and analyze them using artificial intelligence, but mostly thanks to one of the ESL referees who manually reviewed all this and who raised the fuss about this bug. A more high-profile case for them was that right before the start of the major in Antwerp, Esic banned 3 coaches who were supposed to perform at this tournament. This was despite the fact that at that time, the bug had existed for more than 4 years, and some of them, if they used it at all, did so only once and at the beginning of this story. And the investigation itself had been going on for more than 1.5 years. Why they decided to do this right before the major remains a mystery, and the option that it was to punish the guilty is unlikely to be the truly correct answer. Theoretically, this bug could have been exploited not only by those we mentioned, but also by the likes of Zonic or Blade. However, through a mutual agreement, Esic and top clubs could have theoretically agreed not to mention them. But this is just speculation. Esic has plenty of strange stories, like when they initially banned an Australian player for a year for adding 1 year to his age to participate in a 2v2 tournament, and then banned over 30 more Australian players for simply betting on games they weren't even participating in. However, they later lifted these bans, explaining that Ian Smith decided to do this at his own discretion based on the anti-corruption code. In the Akuma situation, which we discussed in more detail in one of our previous videos, Esic decided to remain almost uninvolved. All they did on their part was advise tournament operators not to accept applications from this tag and the players who performed under it. An even stranger old story is the one related to Hunden and his ban. In 2021, information surfaced that Hunden, while occupying the coach slot for Heroic, was allegedly leaking their tactics to competitors such as Astralis. Esic began investigating this case and came to the conclusion the coach needed to be banned. In turn, he started exposing all the inside information about the team, revealing that all players knew he had previously used the coach bug and other details. It went so far that one of Heroic's players, Nico, even confessed to this. But Esic seemed to just ignore it, and none of the players or the team received any punishment. As a result of this case, Hunden's ban was supposed to be lifted in August 2023, but coincidentally it happened 6 months earlier in December 2022. The most interesting part is that neither Esic nor Hunden nor his lawyer published the details of the case or on what terms it was settled. And almost immediately after Hunden's ban was lifted, Astralis signed him. He was already working for the Danish club, but now it was official and public. This suggests that Esic is not as soft and fluffy as they would like to appear, and what they were supposed to fight against, in fact, became their main activity. And if you thought all their scandals ended there, we'll hasten to disappoint, or perhaps satisfy you, as their streak of strange cases has recently continued. Joel, who was playing for Godsent at the time, received a ban in August 2023, allegedly for match fixing. In their investigation, Esic showed that in the spring of that year, the player made about 20 bets on bookmaker sites, including against his own team, where he showed poor gameplay. Joel, of course, began to deny these things and was ready to cooperate with the commission along with his lawyer. Again, we don't have the case materials, But in February of the same year, according to Esic's conclusion, it became known that they were canceling the player's ban due to insufficient evidence, as well as because he cooperated with the commission, which became a key point in the duration of his ban. Ah, do you see the connection? Hundon cooperated with a lawyer, his ban was lifted. Joel, with his lawyer, also cooperated with Esic, and his ban was lifted. Interesting. Well, alright, let's say we're past the Hundon situation. Surely everything must be normal here. The guy placed some bets. It happens. We're all human after all, especially since, as he later wrote on X, he has a gambling addiction, but he's trying to fight it, and he won't dare waste the second chance he's been given. After the match-fixing scandal, Godsent immediately removed the player from their roster, and it wasn't entirely clear where he would continue his career after the ban was lifted. But a few months ago, BC Game, a crypto bookmaker from Stake, created their own team, and Joel became one of its players. What could possibly go wrong? In August 2024, during one of the CCT matches, there was a delay. As it turned out later, the anti-cheat blocked Joel's account and didn't allow him on the server. By the morning, the anti-cheat developers stated that the blocking was 100% correct and the chance of a false positive was close to zero. The club, naturally, immediately suspended him from games and stated that they are against any unfair actions, but would support Joel until irrefutable facts of his guilt are presented. At the end of August, another situation occurred that simply doesn't give peace and understanding of why this organization exists at all. During the qualifications for the RMR for the Shanghai Major, the Paravision team was disqualified after one of their videos showed that Finn, a coach banned by Valve, was with them in the game room. But just a few days later, it became known that the disqualification was canceled and the Russian team would still make it to the RMR in China. As sources revealed, Finn filed an appeal to Esic, and they decided that he could already participate in professional games starting from this major. Against this backdrop, an article appeared on HLTV stating that at the beginning of this year, Esic reduced Finn's ban term, but they decided not to announce their decision or share it with others. To which Esic stated that HLTV simply distorted the facts and provided incorrect information. Again, if you're a regulatory body, any changes that occur should be made public by you so that everyone can understand what's actually happening. But what can we expect when their website doesn't even have the original matrix of coach bans or updates on their status, which became known thanks to Note, an HLTV editor. From this, we can conclude Esic was not obliged to change their decision in any way, but they decided to change it. This, friends, is our justice. Esic is a company that is absolutely unprofessional, not interested in truly developing esports and making it better. Their only interest is influence, and consequently, its monetization. This is the harsh reality of justice in esports. Write in the comments if you liked the video and how we can actually improve the situation that Esic should be responsible for. Leave your likes, hit subscribe, and don't forget about the bell. Good game!